Hey guys, welcome back to The Strange Sessions, episode 2. Exciting. Kurt, didn't think we'd make it this far.
We made it 2 episodes.
Episode
we doubled our
2.
output.
Oh man. If this were like the lottery or something, double our chances. So, what are we going to talk about today?
We are going to talk about ghost hunting
and
our experiences with it.
Yeah.
Because that's how you and I met.
It is.
Yes.
We kind of briefly touched on that in the last episode, so we'll maybe talk a little bit more about that today. But I wanted to follow up and just mention that we're following the whole blue whale thing right now. That's, kind of housekeeping from episode 1. And Kurt, you just looked online and saw some headlines.
Yeah, there's been, there's supposedly teenagers in the United States that have done it and carved the F-57 on their bodies or whatever. But I didn't look more into it. And there's still a lot of warnings about it, even though there's not really a lot of evidence that it's actually a thing.
Yeah.
So
that's the tough part. Nobody's actually verified that any of this is true.
No, and it's just people taking stuff from one report and, so it's just unverified.
Yeah.
But we're keeping an eye on it.
Yeah. I haven't seen it in the news lately, but if I catch any information on it, I'll be sure to jot it down so we can bring it to the podcast.
Yes.
So, guys, if you've heard anything that we haven't talked about regarding the blue whale, please let us know, because we'd like to bring it up in housekeeping and keep people posted on that very strange, possibly completely fabricated game.
I don't know if it's fabricated. I think there's
got to be some truth
I do
to
think
it.
that I still go hoax, but the more people hear about it, the more there's people that
it'll turn
play
into
it
thing.
and
right.
and are like, oh, I'm going to get people to do this on Instagram.
Yeah.
So it's just, it may have started out as a hoax, but it's just something that's going to
turn into something.
That's
the dangerous thing about, putting this kind of thing in the public eye.
Yes.
People are going to go, hey, that's a good idea.
Yes.
Why don't I try that? So if you're listening, don't do that.
Yeah.
It's just a terrible idea. So I have a list of questions that will kind of jump back and forth between, I think, our friend Joe at our flagship podcast, as we like to call it, Paranormal Palaver, an old school media production, gave me a list of questions that he wanted me to ask Kurt, but we'll kind of both be answering these questions throughout. But I wanted to start with, when did you first join a group and what was the name?
I actually just jotted that down before we came. The group was ECWPI. It stood for East Central Wisconsin Paranormal Investigations. And I don't really remember how we all came to meet.
So who started the group?
I believe it was Matt Shank and Katie Kinter.
Okay.
And we had our first investigation, so I consider that our debut or whatever. We had our first investigation on March 12th, 2005 at a business in Oshkosh.
Okay.
So that was our first investigation, 2005.
And did you come away with any?
No, not really much of anything.
Okay. Do you think it was because the place wasn't haunted or lack of experience or knowledge?
I think a little bit of all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, we were new. We didn't really know what we were doing. The people that ran the business stayed there the whole time and kind of wandered around, which doesn't.
Yeah.
I know that doesn't.
I wanted to talk about that a little bit too, because a few of the investigations we've done, the home or business owner has joined us, and there's sort of like it can be a good thing, but it can be a bad thing.
Yeah, because in some situations it didn't work out, but then on the other hand, Vicky, we always wanted Vicky.
She became like
us.
A seasoned
investigator.
investigator.
She became like one of the investigators. It was weird when she wasn't there
Right.
investigating with us.
Although I feel like activity kind of changed when she wasn't there versus when she was there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I think that's the case really in any situation. So I don't know. You don't know what you're going to get depending on
who's there.
Yeah. And how do you test that without doing multiple investigations like we did at Vicky's?
Yes.
But that brings to mind the investigation we did at a certain farm.
Yeah.
Yep. Where the owner and her friend wanted to be there and participate. And they were just loud, and so much of the audio that we listened to, I remember being like, wait, is that one of the ladies or is that?
Yeah, that can throw off,
Yeah.
especially audio.
And they were hardcore believers. I think that's the hard part, is that if someone's calling you into their house or their business because they think there's something going on there, they're convinced something's going on.
Yeah. There was,
and so every noise and bump and anything is going to be something paranormal.
There was one investigation we did with another group where we investigated another business that is supposedly haunted. And we really didn't come up with much of anything. And these people were actually kind of mad that we didn't come up with anything because they wanted to use that as a selling point that, see, it's haunted. These guys said it's haunted.
Right. And that's one of the reasons, because we had talked about in Paranormal Palaver the ethics of why people should not be charging for paranormal investigation services. And I explained that, once you start exchanging money, they're bringing you in because they think it's, haunted. Are they now paying you to come up with evidence? And if you don't come up with evidence, are you not delivering the service that they, it kind of muddies the waters, and it makes it difficult to walk away with a really subjective viewpoint of what you either came up with or didn't come away with.
Yes.
So that's an interesting point to make, though, that your first experience involved the owner being there.
And it was unfortunate that one of our second investigations was JFK Prep, because we would have loved to have been more experienced and more knowledgeable in things, but we still had a really good investigation there.
I
know. I wish you could have been there. I wish you would have been there for that.
So are there any members from, what was the
ECWPI?
Woo, ECWPI that then went to HPI? Yeah,
HPI was our second group that we started, Heartland Paranormal Investigations, and that's the one that you're with us in. And we're still active, but we haven't done one. And I looked at our last investigation, and that was the hair salon.
Oh.
Yeah, well, he'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
But that was October 2nd, 2010. So
really?
Yeah, it was that long ago. Oh, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago. What it was.
No, it doesn't. Wow. Oh, it's been too long. We need to
do something.
Yeah, we do. It's good podcast material.
Yeah, if nothing else.
So who transferred over to that group?
Mark and Rhonda's on.
Yay, Mark and Rhonda.
And Barry.
Oh, Barry was in the original.
Yeah,
group
because
too.
Barry, we didn't really meet Barry until the JFK Prep investigation, because that was a big investigation at a really well-known, supposedly haunted area. Yeah. So we had a couple of other investigators from around the state that came and joined us, and Barry was one of them.
Okay.
And then she was with us ever since, because we love Barry. Who doesn't?
Barry's hard to not love.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So then I came into the picture, what? I don't even know when it would have been. Maybe 2005 or 6? Something like that.
I would think later, because if we were still investigating as ECWPI in 2005.
Then maybe 2006 or 7.
I think 2006 or 2007.
And what was our first investigation? It was Vicky's. Vicky's was my first investigation.
Was it?
Yeah. Well, that was an experience.
We're going to probably have a whole episode dedicated to our investigations. We usually call it Vicky's or Elsing's.
Yeah.
But it's Elsing Secondhand Shop in Stoughton, Wisconsin, which is near Madison. Mm-hmm. And it's one of our favorite places. Yeah. We just love it there.
Yeah, and it's been too long.
And we must have had almost a dozen investigations there.
At least, yeah.
And every time something happens, there wasn't one time that we came away with nothing.
Right.
So something always happens there.
It's kind of like JFK Prep in that you feel drawn there. Yeah. And even though scary things have happened to me personally there, I still want to go there. Yeah. Like I feel it's like homey. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
It is very homey. The draw to JFK Prep was strange. We all said how strange it was that, when we were on our way to the place, we were just like excited, like little kids going, toy shopping. And when we got there, we were just so content. Yeah. And it was just strange.
It has like a peace about it, a peaceful feeling about it, which is so strange considering some of the EVPs that were captured there were kind of violent, actually. Yeah. That's a strange contrast.
We're at some point in the future, we're going to have an episode of Strange Sessions about EVPs, and we will play a bunch of the ones that we've got. Yeah. So we're going to hold off on those.
Yeah. I think we could dedicate a whole episode to JFK Prep probably.
Yeah.
Just the history of the place and your
JFK Prep was
investigations
amazing.
there. I unfortunately have only had the pleasure of shopping at the thrift store that now exists there, but hey, I'll take it. The grounds are just beautiful, and you can still go in the chapel and the church and obviously the thrift store. But
I know you and I have talked about this, but to me, JFK Prep was the opposite of Vicky's.
right,
Because at Vicky's, we had tons of personal experiences, but
a handful of
EVPs.
Right.
And at JFK Prep, I had basically no experiences, but then we got a ton of EVPs and stuff from
and
there.
really, really intriguing EVPs too.
Yes.
So yeah, sorry, we'll stop teasing you guys about the EVPs because
Yeah.
you're not going to get any in this episode.
We need to keep you hooked.
So let's try a couple of these questions from Joe. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, for providing some helpful material for us. Okay, first question is: do you prefer an investigation with lots of equipment or minimal equipment?
Myself,
Yeah.
minimal equipment.
Me too.
I think an investigator needs three things. I think they need a flashlight,
Just for safety purposes,
yes.
actually.
an audio recorder, and their own senses.
Yeah.
I think that's what an investigator needs.
An open mind, right?
When the reason that I got really into looking for a group was because of the show Ghost Hunters,
Sure.
and which is, I think, a lot of people, once that came out and started picking up steam, I think a lot of people started groups.
Right. Oh,
And-
for sure.
And
are now part of the TAPS family. You can
Yeah.
be like, you can register or whatever to be part of their family.
I soured on that show pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, I was into it for a while too, but then you started seeing things and hearing things about how evidence is fake.
Oh, they had that one live
yes
Halloween show with
where
the collar.
Grant's collar.
Yeah. And that was just like...
So
no. I was like,
obviously faked.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's when I kind of checked out, and I'm like,
And then you're
nope.
like, you're selling out now. Now I can't believe anything you've ever done because it just, and that's disappointing because I think Grant was one of the investigators who caught, we talked about this in Paranormal Palaver too, the EVP where the woman from like another century was saying to them, well, who are you? Like, why are you here? And to her, they were the ghosts and she could hear them asking her questions.
Yes.
And she was responding to them like, why are you in my home? Like it was really, really strange. You should look it up if you haven't heard these EVPs or this conversation that they have. So it just kind of puts a damper on the stuff that I've thought was really amazing evidence because it makes you question everything they've ever done. Now.
Yeah, I don't, unless it's an EVP that our group recorded or I personally recorded, I kind of don't.
I have a hard time believing
Same
anybody.
with photos. I mean,
Oh,
photos,
God.
it's so easy.
Well, I think mistaking something in a photo is so much easier than mistaking something from an audio. You know what I mean?
Yes.
A photo is there's so many factors at play there, and you can't. It's hard to explain. Like if you see something that looks like an anomaly in a photo, you're not going to get the answer to that question.
No. And I'm convinced that a ghost could pop up in this room right now with us in the studio, and I could take a good picture of it with my cell phone and put it online, and it would just be a blip that people would say, this is faked.
Right.
It was faked.
People love EVPs though.
So
you put an
it's just-
piece of audio on,
Yeah. I love EVPs.
So
EVPs
do
is
I.
That's my favorite
They're
part of
amazing.
investigating.
I think they're amazing. I agree with you though. I've taken hundreds of photos, hundreds and hundreds, and I've never ever found one thing that I thought was valid paranormal evidence.
I've gotten a couple questionable things, but not enough to
make it
be like,
worth
this is
bringing a
proof.
camera anymore. And I definitely think that there is something to be said for having all that fancy equipment. But I think that you can do a successful investigation with a recorder and your own senses.
Yeah,
And
I'm
to me, all that equipment is more about almost disproving and debunking rather than proving anything.
a lot of it for me is that the recorder you can put in your pocket or whatever, or carry with you.
It's
and,
convenient.
And if you're taking pictures, you're constantly looking around, snapping your camera, doing this, doing that, not paying attention to the surroundings. And I think the ratio of impressive ghost pictures to a picture of an empty room is too big. I don't think I'm just never been one for photographing.
No, me either. I feel like we're more minimalists when it comes to investigating.
But then as TAPS went on and as Ghost Adventures went on, they got to do things like with that Frank's box or whatever that radio thing is.
The ghost box.
Yeah, that ghost box that scans through all the radio frequencies for like 1 second, and then you get this blip of audio. And it's supposedly
so open to interpretation.
Yeah,
though.
that's why I just don't.
Yeah.
I just don't get that.
Well, in the K2, we've used that on an investigation once, and we did get some results from it that related some EVPs we got on the stairway.
Yes,
at Vicky's. Weren't there like some sighs and things like that that we were getting?
I think that was the night that it was just you and I there that we had sighs. Yes.
Oh, did we have the K2 meter with us that night?
I don't think so. I think the K2 meter on the stairway was a different night.
Yeah, I think so too because I remember Rhonda being there. Hey, Rhonda.
Hi, Rhonda.
Are you listening, Rhonda?
I hope so.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, so I don't know. I think it's a good idea to have that equipment though on your. I think it's having people who have minimal equipment and having people who like to use that equipment. It's a good balance. It's kind of like having people who are skeptics and people who are kind of more believers.
Yeah.
You kind of want to have a balance of stuff when you have a team. You know?
Totally.
Okay. Question number 2. Was there ever an investigation you were scared to do?
An investigation I was scared to do? No.
So
an investigation I was scared on?
Yeah.
Like an investigation that I'm scared to do? No.
I do have one, and we didn't end up doing it. So I think it was towards the end of when we were kind of active. Someone from another group recommended us for an investigation in the Green Bay area where the family thought someone was dealing with demonic
Oh, I forgot about
possession. Yeah, and I remember being like,
you didn't want to do
that. I'm not even sure I believe in demonic possession, but I'm afraid enough of the idea of it that I don't want to have anything to do with it.
I think Ghost Adventures killed my fears of demonic
Why? Just because someone gets possessed on every episode?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not real? I don't know. Yeah. That's the problem with these shows. They kind of ruin it for the rest of us who are trying to do a legitimate, investigation without all the bells and whistles and publicity. And although I do see a lot of groups out there now that are really trying to get to that level.
I don't understand that. When we started doing this, I got into it because of TAPS. I wanted to be in a group. I wanted to do this kind of stuff, but any kind of fame or anything like that was something that I do not want ever.
No.
With this podcast, maybe.
My goal with, when it comes to these podcasts, I would love to do this full time. And this is actually a thing that you could do full time. People do it. But even, Jason and Grant, they're still working for Roto-Rooter folks. They're not ghost hunting full time. I'm sure they get paid for doing ghost hunters, but it's not like paying for their kids' education or anything like that. Although I know Jason's daughter is now on the show.
Yeah,
so.
It's done. Yeah, the show's not on anymore.
No,
it's
the
done.
last season.
The last episode.
Yeah.
So I think the paranormal show bubble has burst.
Well, Amy Bruni and Barry, what's his first name? Adam Barry now have their own show.
Yeah.
And some people, Nick Groff, it's really sad.
Yeah, the only one that I actually watch anymore is Paranormal
Lockdown.
Lockdown, and that's just because I have a crush on...
He has a crush on Katrina.
I do have a crush on Katrina.
Who was on Paranormal State, which has so much controversy behind that show, too. Although they did a lot of work with Lorraine Warren, which is kind of cool. She was a guest on that show quite a bit. But yeah, otherwise, that's the only investigation that I didn't want to do, and we didn't do it.
Does he ask on there, what's the most frightened you've been on an investigation?
Next question.
Okay.
What was the scariest moment while investigating? I feel like I have 2. The vault at the hair salon was terrifying to me.
That's just, when you talked about that in a Paranormal Palaver, that kind of surprised me, because I was in there with you.
I was playing it cool.
I know, but I didn't think it was that. I felt claustrophobic more than anything, but I don't think that I felt freaked out. That
played into it. So we were at this hair salon, which is in this really old building in Manitowoc. And it didn't help that she mentioned the woman who owned the place at the time claimed to be a sensitive, which of course I'm 100% skeptical the second anyone utters those words. And she claimed that she thought there was demons involved. I remember her saying that. And of course, I'm already skeptical about her to begin with and about demons, but you planted that thought. Now I'm a little freaked out about it, right? So we were in the basement, because that's where you go in investigations. You find the basement and you go there. And surprisingly, though, I got a ton of EVPs
Yeah, we had
out of that
a
place.
lot of experiences there.
Whispers, like weird stuff, all in the basement. I don't remember getting any evidence.
No, I don't think we
from
got anything
the
upstairs,
other
really.
floors. Yeah. So we're down in the basement, and there's this vault where they at some time must have kept the safe or whatever. I don't know what.
I think it might have been a bank or
Maybe.
some place that needed to lock up stuff.
Yeah. And it was me, Kurt, and Rhonda.
Yes.
Correct?
Yep.
In this vault
In
with
the
the
dark.
door mostly closed, not like
Locked.
secured, because I would never allow that to happen. Pitch dark. You can't even see your hand in front of your face. We're sitting, the three of us in a row in this vault, just doing an EVP session. And I just, like I said, I'm sure the claustrophobia kind of played into it a little bit. The pitch darkness didn't help. But I started almost having like an anxiety attack because I was so freaked out. My heart was racing. I was practically holding my breath. You guys were asking questions, and I remember just sitting there quietly, like not doing or saying anything. I think I even had my eyes closed.
I seriously had no idea you were that freaked out.
Yeah, I was really freaked out. I was wearing a gold cross necklace from my, days when I grew up and I was Catholic. I was raised Catholic. I don't really affiliate myself with any religion at this point, but I remember clutching this thing through the whole EVP session because I was just so terrified and I could not wait to get out of that room. And I don't even remember now if I got an EVP from inside the vault. I'd have to look at my files and see if I have anything labeled that, but we'll have to include some of those EVPs.
The weirdest thing that happened to me that night was when you guys were upstairs and I was in the vault all by myself. Mm-hmm. And the door was shut, but there was a little crack beneath the door. Mm-hmm. You could see
some ambient light coming.
And there was a dehumidifier, I believe, that was directly across from the door. Mm-hmm. So I was sitting against the back floor of the vault.
Yeah.
With my recorder asking questions in the dark. And by
you're
that
a lunatic.
Yeah,
you're hardcore, Kurt.
by that time, it had been 10, 15 minutes, so my eyes were adjusted really well. So I was sitting watching the crack underneath the door. I could see the orange light from the dehumidifier there. And as I was watching it, there was, and I mean, I know that this was what it was. There was the break in the light where somebody walked in front of the door. And then there was maybe a pause of 4 or 5 seconds, and then they walked back across in front of the door. And I got on my walkie-talkie.
It gives me the shivers right now.
And I asked if you guys were down there, and you guys weren't down there.
No, we were all upstairs, like either on the main level or there was like another
Yes, there was
upper
a third
level.
floor.
Yeah.
And then I left the vault and looked outside, and there was nothing out there. But something had walked. I mean, my first thought was that it was passing headlights from a car.
There's no windows in the basement.
No, and the way that the stairs went down into the basement, there was no way that
it was
would...
behind
it was
the
angled.
vault.
Yeah. So, but there was obviously somebody walked in front of the door, that turned around and walked back past it again.
Oh, that's creepy.
And, that should freak me out, but I remember thinking how cool it was. I wasn't freaked out. I was just like, wow. My friend Aaron always says, like, stuff that shouldn't scare me scares me, and the stuff that should scare me doesn't scare me.
That's funny. I don't know if that's good or bad.
I don't know if it's good or bad either.
I suppose, depending on the situation, it could be good.
Oh, my scariest
Oh, yeah,
time.
yeah. That's not even yours.
No, that was cool. My scariest time was the time at Vicky's with our first
EVP
investigation there. Yeah,
yep. Barry wasn't there yet.
No, we went to Vicky's, and I think we must have had 5 or 6 of us at the time. We went down.
It was me, you, Mark, Rhonda, Matt, and Vicky.
Yeah,
right. Is that it?
It's a secondhand store. They sell a lot of different things. Antiques. The basement. The main room in the basement we call the furniture room because that's where they have the couches and the
dressers,
hutches,
tables,
and all that stuff. That's the furniture room. And there wasn't much down there at the time. So we arranged the chairs in a circle.
Around a table.
Around a table in the middle of the room. And we shut off the light. We had our recorders, and that was our first EVP session there.
Yeah, my first ever EVP
Your first
session.
ever EVP session. So we're in the dark, sitting there in a circle, asking questions, and all of a sudden, and this I still remember this clear as day, that the lights were off.
Yeah.
There was the light from the exit sign that we couldn't shut off.
It was at the end of the hall, though, so it was really, really, really vague ambient light.
Yeah. So it was very dark in there, but then all of a sudden, the room got darker. And that's the only way I can think of to describe it, is that the room was already dark, but something happened and it became pitch dark.
Yep.
And we all were just feeling...
Well, I remember that we decided, let's just sit quietly.
Yeah.
So we stopped asking questions and we all just sat there in silence in the dark. And that's when that happened.
Yeah.
I remember all of a sudden just being like, okay, is anyone else like seriously freaked out right now? Like, I'm feeling such intense fear right now for no reason.
Yep.
Nothing happened. We didn't hear anything. I didn't feel anything.
It felt to me like something came into the room.
Right.
And
everything
was not real happy that we were there. I mean, there was...
I felt like it was letting us know, hey, you guys are new. This is my place.
Yep.
And I'm letting you know that I'm here.
And we were all kind of like, whoa, okay, let's knock it off. So we waited at that point.
Or was that
No,
later?
that was the next one. I think that was the next one. So at that point, maybe it was the first time that Mark said he felt the sensation of like somebody reaching towards his neck.
His neck, yeah. I thought it was during that.
It might have been during the first one.
He didn't want to say anything.
So we were like, well, okay, let's stop. So we stopped, and Barry was on her way to join us on the investigation, and we kind of wanted, I think at that point we just kind of putzed around and waited for Barry.
Mm-hmm. I think we were a little freaked out and we're like, let's take a break.
Barry had been on tons of investigations. She knew her stuff. Mm-hmm. We kind of wanted to wait.
Does not get rattled easily.
No, so we wanted to wait for her to get there so we could kind of tell her what happened. So she showed up. We went down in the basement and tried it again, and it was nothing.
No,
there was nothing.
Nothing at all. It was like nothing had ever happened.
Yeah.
She was probably like,
yeah,
wow,
she told me later. She
noobs.
told me later that she was like, wow, I'm with a bunch of noobs that don't know what they're doing. So then we turned the light back on, and I think we did some more investigating and stuff, and then we decided to try the EVP circle again a third time. And, we started at asking questions and stuff, and then all of a sudden the darkness came back into the room. And it was like pitch dark again. And that's the only way I can think of to describe it, is it got darker than dark. Mm-hmm. And Barry was like, yeah, she got
like physically ill.
So did I. Barry and I actually had to leave the shop
you went
because
outside.
She was sitting next to me. And we were both had our back to the stairs that come down into the shop.
Okay, yeah.
And both her and I had to leave because we felt physically ill and like something did not want us down there. So her and I went and sat out on the stairs outside the building, and that was probably the most freaked out I was on an investigation. The thought of walking back into the building was like, no. But we ended up going back in, and the rest of the investigation went fine. But that moment when her and I left, that's probably the most frightened I've been on an investigation. I've been in other areas where I felt uneasy, like in
the back basement.
Yeah, there was a night that Krista and I were investigating there by ourselves.
Vicky was there, but she kind of came and went.
She left. She had left. So Krista and I were there, and we'd investigated that basement, the back room of the back area of the basement, so many times
creepy.
in the dark.
Yeah. And it's definitely creepy back there.
But not.
This was different, though.
Yeah. And her and I were walking around doing little EVP sessions, and we went back there and left the lights on. Yeah. And we were back in that little hallway with the lights on.
Yeah, with the lights on.
And asking questions, and all of a sudden it was just like, no, I don't want to be here right now.
No, it was so intense. We both were just like, we need to get out of here.
Yeah.
But we kind of like joked about it because this is ridiculous. Why are we so freaked out right now? We've been down here so many times.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was strange. That was the night that's my number 2. I had the breathing in the ear.
Yes, tell the listeners about that.
So the investigation was over at this point, and this place, if you're familiar with Wisconsin at all, is near Madison, and we were driving I was coming from Sheboygan. Kurt comes from like the Manitowoc area, so it's a good hour and a half something like that.
Yeah, at least an hour
give or
and a
take,
half, possibly.
Yeah. So we typically, the first night that we investigated there, we drove back because, we were strangers. But after that, every investigation, we spent the night there, which
she let
sounds
us
like
spend the night.
Sheer lunacy. But when you consider the drive and the fact that we like to get up and go out for breakfast the next morning.
Yes. Shout out to the coffee cup.
Shout out to the coffee cup.
Oh, garbage omelets.
We spent the night there because it was just easier than driving home at 3-4 in the morning. So Vicky was sleeping in the same place she always slept, which what we call like the toy area, which is in a completely different room. Like you could yell to her and she'd hear us, but she wasn't really anywhere near us. I was sleeping right in front of like the register where they would check people out, and you were a good 10 feet away, right? Laying 10 feet away towards...
I believe I was downstairs. I think
no,
I was...
you were upstairs. I remember.
Maybe I
would not
wasn't...
have allowed that.
Okay, maybe... But I have slept downstairs.
No, you slept downstairs
a couple times by myself.
No, this was definitely when you investigated by yourself. Didn't you sleep downstairs?
No.
Oh, you were upstairs.
Yeah.
No, you were definitely upstairs because I remember exactly where you were laying, kind of where the postcards are.
Yes.
That's where you were.
Yes.
So that's probably 10 feet from where I was laying.
I think that if that was one of our first, or was that just the night that you and I were there?
That was just me and you.
Yeah.
Yep. So I was on a cot. I was laying on my left side. This is like probably, I don't know how many years ago, but I remember every detail of it. I was awake because I'm a horrible sleeper, so it takes me literally hours to fall asleep if I'm not in my own bed. I'm lying on my left. I've got the sleeping bag that I'm in pulled up over my ear because I'm freaked out already. And I don't want anything, because if you're under the covers, nothing can get you, duh, right?
Obviously.
So I'm laying there, and all of a sudden, I start hearing this heavy breathing, is the only way I can describe it, in my ear. But it wasn't like, the perverted caller who, rings your phone in the middle of the night.
It wasn't me.
Like
it wasn't me.
It wasn't Kurt. It was like an aggressive, I'm, kind of looming over you to let you know that I'm here and you're vulnerable and I'm going to make you feel like I'm putting you in your place kind of breathing. It was really heavy and aggressive. And I remember laying there listening to it. My heart started pounding. And I remember thinking, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just so freaked out. And with the covers pulled up over my head, I'm hearing my own breath and misinterpreting it. So I remember holding my breath and I could still hear the breathing. And I remember being so scared that I started sweating. And so I was lying on my left side and I can still feel it, this drop of sweat that started like under my right ear and dripped sideways across my neck over to my left ear.
It's like a horror movie kind of thing.
It was like happening in slow motion. And then just all of a sudden it stopped and it was over. And I remember laying there for a little while like, is it safe? Like, is there something standing behind me? And I slowly lowered the covers and looked around. You were sound asleep, laying 10 feet away from me. Nobody else was around. And I will never forget that.
That's nuts. Well, didn't somebody else get the breathing in their ear?
I don't know.
I could have sworn there was somebody
maybe
that also got the breathing in the ear.
That would be good to know.
That would be good to know.
It's not just me.
Was it that investigation or was it one of the first ones where you guys thought you heard me coming up the steps?
Oh, I remember that.
You heard somebody walking up the...
The first night that we spent there would have been probably the second investigation.
Yeah.
I think Rhonda and I both heard
somebody coming up the
stairs, but then nobody came out from the stairwell.
I was downstairs sleeping at the time.
I think Barry was down there with you,
yes, but neither of us did that.
Yeah, it was weird. No, every time I heard someone come up the stairs, I remember like if Barry came up to use the bathroom, you would hear them progress through the place, go into the bathroom, shut the door. You'd hear the toilet flush. Like this was just heavy stairs coming, heavy footsteps coming up the stairs, and then nothing. Nobody ever came out from the stairwell.
No, we had a lot of experiences there.
Jeez, I feel like we could.
But the weird thing is, after that first time where Barry and I had to leave the shop because we were both, with that EVP circle, I have never felt. I always feel comfortable there.
Me too.
I've investigated twice by myself, slept in there by myself. I slept downstairs by myself a bunch of times.
With us upstairs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the last time I slept downstairs is that time that I woke up. And when you're downstairs, it's no matter what time of day it is, it's pitch dark. But I remember I slept downstairs and I woke up. I don't think you guys were up yet. upstairs. I didn't really hear you upstairs, but I was laying there on a couch in the dark. I woke up and I said, is there anybody here with me right now? And
I remember.
just like that, there was one knock on the table right by my head. And I was like, wow. Okay.
So were you recording at that time?
I believe so. Or I might not have been. If it was morning, I probably shut off my recorder.
Yeah. As we went on, we definitely started recording like 24/7. Yeah, because
we had the incident where
the whisper we all heard someone whispering.
When we were in the main room in the morning, sunlight coming in through the front window.
We're all just talking, no recorders going, and everybody heard someone whisper, and literally everyone turned to the person next to them and said, "What?"
Yeah, and didn't somebody say somebody's name?
I clearly heard Vicky say my name
and
that same day. I have that recorded. We'll have to play that. But you can clearly hear her say, Krista. And you can hear me say, what? Did you just say my name? And Vicky says, no, I did not. And then everybody's like, what just happened? It was so weird. And I'm so glad I was recording because you can clearly hear Vicky has a very distinct voice.
Yes.
And it was very clearly Vicky saying my name. So, that's a little creepy that something said my name in Vicky's voice. Like, that's really creepy.
One of the EVPs we'll play in a future episode is that one where we're all milling around talking, and you can hear what sounds like, I think it sounds like a kid in the background saying, help us, help us, help us. And that was in the morning when we were just kind of, packing up and stuff and getting ready to go.
Talking about random nothing. We weren't investigating.
No, and it was nothing for stuff to happen in the day.
Right.
There was one time I went there, Aaron Pleasance, one of my best friends.
Hi, Aaron.
Hi, Aaron.
We geocached together once.
We geocached together. You came with us that one time, and we found those ones that were hard. But he wanted to go there, so we went there. We took a day trip there, and we were talking about it and stuff, and Aaron...
Oh, I remember this. Yeah.
Didn't really, he wanted to really see the place and stuff. And we went inside. He met Vicky, and, we went downstairs. And when we got downstairs, he was just immediately, I don't want to be here. Mm-hmm. He did not want to be down there. He said he swears he will never go in that basement again.
Really?
Yeah. And
I can't wait.
I know. I love it there. And he went back upstairs, and I remember clear as day, he sat down on a chair in front of the register. There's that one chair that we always would kind of sit in by the register.
Kind of off to the side.
He sat there, and then Vicky took me to the back of the shop because the week before, something had flown off the wall. Mm-hmm. I want to say it was a saw blade or something like that. Flew off the wall.
Awesome. That's the kind of thing you want launching through the air.
Yeah, exactly. And she wanted to show me where it happened. So she took me back there, and I remember we walked back there. Aaron was reading a magazine sitting in that chair. And when we walked back there, I turned and looked behind the register, and she had the monitors because there were cameras around the shop for shoplifters and stuff. She had the monitors on. So she took me back there. I glanced at the monitors. All of them were on. Everything was good. We went back. She showed me where it had flown off the wall. We walked back to the front where Aaron was, and we walked up there, and Vicky said, Aaron, did you unplug my monitor? And Aaron said, no, I've been sitting here the whole time. And she showed me. And the plug for the monitor looked like somebody had pulled it out of the outlet and set it on the counter right there. Not even like it fell out on its own. It was like somebody took it out and set it there.
It's weird, the timing.
Yeah.
That whatever it was waited until you two walked away.
But the thing that we always felt about Vicky's is that when it's your first time there...
It's got to mess with you.
It's got to mess with you. It's like its way of showing you that it's boss.
Right.
But then after that...
It's kind of cool with you.
Yeah, it's kind of cool with you.
How come it messed with me again then? The breathing in the ear.
I don't know.
Maybe it was feeling amorous.
It was a brothel at one time.
Yeah. Didn't Aaron get sick?
Yeah, when we left there, it was weird too because before we went there, we went and had garbage omelets at the coffee cup, and a garbage omelet is just a huge omelet
with chili
slathered in tons of chili. Yeah. And we went and ate that, and we went to the shop, and when we left, Aaron and I were driving away, and he said, I got to pull over. I'm going to be sick. And we went to a gas station. Aaron went to the bathroom and threw up, and he said it was just weird that everything he threw up was clear liquid. There was no...
That's strange.
Anything.
He just ate a garbage omelet. All of that should have come back.
So...
Oh, that would have been a horrible thing to throw up.
Your first time there, it messes with you. After that, it messes with you more. Like I almost feel like in a fun way.
Yeah. Well...
Other than the breathing in the ear. And...
That's open to interpretation. It's interesting though, because we had that experience the first time with the EVP session, and then it happened again when Barry came later. You know, it took a couple of times, but then it was like, oh, we've got a new person here. I've got to let her know that, you know, she can't just come into my shop. And it's interesting how all of us feel kind of welcome and at home there, but I don't think, I kind of feel, and I know Barry has said this too, that whatever's there is not.
See, and I'm convinced that whatever's there is not bad.
You think it's not malevolent?
No.
You think it's
no? Barry and I have argued about this because Barry says whatever is there.
I feel like
portrays itself as being nicer than it is.
Well, I agree. I agree with Barry.
But I also think there's more than one.
Oh, totally.
Spirit or whatever there.
I mean, we got the little girl and
we got the little girl on the EVP,
and I question that 100%. It's an EVP 100%. It sounds like a little girl laughing, but there's that theory out there that there are no children spirits trapped, you know, on this earth because whatever power that may be wouldn't allow that to happen, and that anything portraying itself as a child is something darker that's trying to gain your trust. So I think about that when I think about that EVP.
Yeah.
At face value, it was like, oh, is there like a little girl trapped here? And then you start thinking about that, and it's kind of freaky.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when I
what
was there.
What could that actually be?
When I was doing an investigation by myself there, where I went down in the furniture room, sat in a chair, and read a children's book, and invited the child ghost to come into the room. And then I'm reading it, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do if it
actually
does
shows
come
up
in the room? Yeah.
You better do all the voices, Kurt.
Yep. So,
oh man, yeah. Vicky's.
The only other time that I actually felt uneasy there is when we were there with another investigating group, and one of the investigators was provoking.
Yeah.
We were down in the basement in one of the rooms, and he was telling the spirit it's a coward and all this stuff, and you could just feel the...
It's not a practice I agree with.
No, me either. And you could feel the vibes in the room, like get...
You might get results, but when you leave, the person who owns that place has to deal with that pissed off ghost. Right.
Deal with a...
That's why I just don't agree with it. Maybe you can do it in a place that's abandoned and nobody has to actually spend time there, but I don't agree with doing it in a place. But
still, what gives people the right to do that in the first place?
Right, and Vicky was very adamant about people not doing that.
Yeah.
So that was kind of disrespectful. We won't name names.
No.
What is the most fun investigation you have ever been on?
Most fun.
How would I narrow that down? I mean, I feel like every investigation at Vicky's was so much fun. You know, we've done other investigations, but nothing stands out like the ones we did there because part of the thing is we're all friends.
Yeah.
And we have so much fun together.
Yeah.
There's a lot of joking around. There's a lot of laughing. Don't get me wrong. We take investigating very seriously, but we also have a lot of fun when we do it. So.
Yeah, when I go back and listen to my audio, I laugh so much at this stupid crap we say.
Exactly. Your stomach growling.
Yeah,
and
my stomach growling.
Thinks that the devil has entered the room.
Yeah, that was my tummy growl.
Can you think of one besides?
The one that, it wasn't technically an investigation, but when Barry, Matt, and I went to the Ohio State Reformatory.
We'll touch on that more later.
Okay.
Because I think that falls into another question that he has here. This is a good question. Have you experienced any residual hauntings or activity after an investigation? I think he's asking, has anything ever followed us?
I had all my stuff in my apartment.
Yeah,
my old apartment.
When did that start?
I don't remember. I think it was shortly after I moved in there.
Okay.
When I was dating my ex.
Were you investigating at that point?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because
I think whatever was there was attached to that apartment.
I agree.
Not you.
But there's people that thought that I brought something home.
I think if that were the case, it would have followed you to your new place.
Yeah, there's been nothing at the new apartment. But the old apartment, wow. We can maybe have a whole episode dedicated.
We could.
That was getting scratched constantly in the shower, seeing things, hearing things.
Yeah, we'll save that for another episode because we could talk for days about some of the stuff that you've experienced. I personally have not ever experienced anything. I've been worried about that. When we left the salon and I had to drive all the way back to Sheboygan in the dark by myself, you can imagine I was kind of checking my back seat a lot. And yeah, I was pretty freaked out when I left that place. But I've never really truly felt like anything has ever followed me.
And I should have snuck into the back seat. When you were on the highway, I could have reached up and started playing with your hair.
Great joke, Kurt. Oh my gosh. Do you value your hands? How different is a real investigation from a TV investigation? Well, we don't fake anything. There's your starter.
For starters.
We're not getting paid. That's another one. I think that there's a misconception because what the episodes that they air on these shows, they're probably doing, 10 investigations in between those investigations. It makes it seem like every single investigation they do, they're just having this outrageous activity and all these EVPs, and it doesn't happen like that.
No.
And it's not all condensed into 1 hour. It's over the span of, several hours.
A lot of investigations, you can be at the place for 8, 9, 10 hours, and you're lucky if you get 1 or 2 questionable pieces of evidence.
Exactly.
Or experiences.
I mean, a lot of it is really just sitting around
in the dark
waiting for
your
something
friends.
to happen.
Yeah.
That's why we have so much fun when we do it, because we're kind of passing the time, and you can kind of get to a point where you're a couple hours in and you're like, nothing is happening.
Yeah.
And this place just doesn't feel like anything's going on, but you're not just going to leave.
Yeah.
You're curious about paranormal activity. Doesn't happen on demand.
No.
So it's worth waiting around and, exploring new areas or trying different
6
techniques.
days out of the week, the place could be crazy active, and the one night we're there is the one night that there's nothing going on.
Well, and another misconception, too, is that all these investigations take place at night. And I do think that there are reasons for doing that. I feel like ambient noise from the surrounding area is a little quieter at night. You're not dealing with sunlight and the way that can bounce off of things if you're taking pictures or whatever. I think your senses are more heightened when you're in the dark. But as we learned at Vicky's, stuff happens during the day all the time.
And things that you could actually see, you're having a better chance to see it during the day when it's light.
Sure.
You could all be sitting in a dark room and something could be there in front of you and you don't see it because
doing like the
doing a
little soft shoe.
Yeah. Doing the Macarena, and you're not going to see it because the lights are off.
Yeah, exactly. But none of these shows do investigations during the day, and I think that's
I think a lot of it is atmosphere.
Totally. It's the creep factor.
Yeah.
It's more fun to do it at night. I'll
be
fun
honest.
To do it. If I'm being honest. If someone is interested in investigating and they don't have any equipment, is there anything they can do to join in the fun?
Get an audio recorder, get a flashlight.
Yeah, digital recorder. You can buy one for probably $20-$30.
You could even just go into a place with a flashlight and trust your instincts.
You might not come away with any evidence, but you might have an experience that you will never forget.
Yeah.
Actually, your flashlight can be a tool. So there's this technique that they use on these shows, which I've always wanted to try, but I've never done.
Yeah, I don't buy it.
No?
No.
I'd like to try it, though.
I wouldn't mind trying it. Is that the one where they kind of half
totally
unscrew?
Kind of unscrew it, and that you see these people getting consistent results. So basically the idea is you kind of unscrew the top of your flashlight so that the battery connection is very minimal, and I think you turn it on, don't you?
I think so.
And then you ask questions. One light is a yes, no light is a no, or whatever you're going to choose. And you ask questions, and if the flashlight lights up, that's a yes. Whatever spirit or energy in the room is manipulating the flashlight to communicate with. So technically you could try communicating with the flashlight. If you have a smartphone, you probably have some kind of recording feature on it.
Yeah.
You could do that, and you could probably take pictures with that too. So you
I
probably have everything. You have a flashlight on your smartphone. All you need is
your
a smartphone.
Go in and do that.
And a charger probably, because that's all going to kill your battery really quickly. Have an open mind too.
Yes.
And a healthy dose of skepticism, though, I might add. Those are my recommendations. What would your top 5 places to investigate statewide, nationwide, worldwide? So this is where you could talk about that you've already had one of your bucket list places was the Ohio State.
The Ohio State. It wasn't the Ohio State Penitentiary. It was the Reformatory, which I think is a different but it was an abandoned prison, and it wasn't like it was an investigation that we did. They do overnights where you pay and you go there.
But you did an investigation,
Well,
technically,
yeah,
kind of.
yeah, because you're there
through.
usually with a lot of other people. But as the night goes on, those people kind of leave, wander off. We did an all-nighter, and like 2, 3 in the morning. There's not that many people there.
Right.
But yeah, that place was amazing.
And you guys saw a shadow figure.
That's one of the only places that we've investigated where I've actually seen something.
So talk about it. Give me more details.
We went, Taps was there on the show Ghost Hunters previously, and there was a cell where I think they kept noticing activity or something, so they put a black magic marker X.
I remember that. Outside
the cell. So Barry, Matt, and I went looking for this cell, and we found it finally, and we were kind of, snooping around it, looking around it, and we started walking away, and they came on over the loudspeaker and said that the pizza was just delivered because they order pizza for all the people that come.
That's a great time to investigate. Everybody's going to get their pizza.
Yeah, that's the thing is that, we kind of poked around in the room for a little bit more, and we started leaving. We walked on the walkway outside the prison cells, and it was Barry in the front, and then me, and then Matt behind us, and all of a sudden I think Barry elbowed me in the stomach, or she just said, "Kurt, turn off your light and look ahead of us." She said, "Do you see something?" So I shut off my light, and we looked. And
Did you say Matt was still with you?
Yes, Matt was in the back. Okay. And there, 20 feet ahead of us on the walkway, there was just a silhouette of a man standing there looking at us. And we're standing there kind of looking at him. And slowly he turned sideways, and then he stepped into the cell that was right by him. And we went down there, and there was nobody in the cell.
So was it the cell that had the X on it?
No, we were walking away from the cell, but it was the same walkway. It must have been like maybe 7, 8, 9 cells down from the cell with the X in it. But it was obviously a shadow of a person looking at us.
That's
and
amazing.
Then he turned sideways really slowly and stepped into the cell. And there's nobody in the cell. I would love to get back there and check it out again.
Yeah. I'd love to go there in the first place.
Other than that, we really didn't have a lot, but it was just really neat.
The one experience you had was pretty good quality.
And it was great seeing the place. I wish I had seen the Shawshank Redemption before I went there, because that's where they filmed a lot of it, and they still had a lot of the stuff up from the movie, like the office, the way the warden's office was set up and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah. And they had one of the rooms was still set up as the hotel room where Morgan Freeman carved, somebody had carved, they were there, and then Morgan Freeman's character carved Red was here too, or something like that, and they still had that there. So I wish I had seen the movie before I went there so I could have appreciated it more.
Yeah, right.
But it was just really neat to see the prison, to actually investigate an abandoned prison.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
So JFK Prep would be on my list because I didn't get to do
Prep.
it. The Stanley Hotel.
Stanley Hotel.
Love to check out the Stanley Hotel.
What is the boat? Is it the
Queen Mary?
Yes, that is.
Love to do the Queen Mary. Man, the stuff that they've talked about.
Yeah, the Queen Mary is on my
bucket list.
On my investigation bucket list.
I would love to go to like Ireland or someplace where they have those castles. Actually, anywhere in Europe where they have 1,000-year-old castles just hanging out on the side of the road. I would just love to experience a place like that, but especially one that has some kind of paranormal history to it. I don't know. That's 4 for me.
I don't know, but I'm also happy with just somebody's rinky-dink house.
Yeah.
That's having a lot of activity.
I'd like to do Elsings again.
Yeah, definitely love to do Elsings again.
There's a bucket list one for me. I can't really think of any, I would like to go check out, and we, on Paranormal Palaver, we had some contact with a group where the leader of the group is actually on a restoration project for Summerwind.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so we need to get back in contact with them and talk about an interview. We were actually talking about meeting at Summerwind to do an interview with this person cool. And the work that they're doing because I think that Summerwind is a place in Wisconsin. It used to be a mansion.
It's supposedly very haunted.
Very haunted, but I believe it got so decrepit and kind of run down that it's mostly just like a skeleton of a maybe even a foundation at this point. I'm not sure. I've never been there, but and Glenbeulah is always a good location. The cemetery in Glenbeulah. I'd like to get there again. Although, side note, I heard the ticks are going to be real bad this year, and my husband already found one crawling on him. And he is working on building a new house. So, word to the wise, kids, if you're going to hang out in cemeteries, wear your bug spray.
Yes.
What attracts you to investigating? That's such a broad question.
It is a broad question. To experience these things, I think.
Totally. I mean, I want the experiences, number one, because I kind of like being scared. It's like a thing. It's a rush. And number two, because to me, all of the experiences I have are what I consider sort of proof that there's something after we die. I don't know what that is, but to me, it's proof that there's something else. We don't just die and go into the ground.
I don't know if I've always thought that the things that we experience are people that have died.
And I always have until I heard other theories.
Yeah, I have other theories about
other
that.
Dimensions.
Yeah,
bleeding into ours.
There's a lot of it is residual energy of things that happen there.
Well, I definitely think that the residual energies are the ones that seem to repeat themselves over and over again and don't interact with you and kind of go about their business like you're not even there. But when you get like the direct answers to questions, to me that's not residual. There's an intelligence behind it.
Yeah.
But that could be like another dimensional thing. It's not. It's just another dimension that's maybe bleeding into ours a little bit, and we're kind of hearing each other when we shouldn't be. And I don't know. It's kind of a crazy thing to think about.
I really want to do an episode on reality, nature of reality, whether other dimensions exist, whether reality is a simulation. Maybe the next episode.
I don't even like thinking about that.
I love that. I've been just fascinated by that lately.
Well, you have to give me some stuff to read because I haven't
Let's
really
plan on that for
looked
the next
into that
episode.
a whole lot. Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
The nature of reality.
Listeners, if you have a theory on the nature of reality,
please ask us a question.
Yeah, let us know what your theory is or ask us some questions that we can answer on the show. What is the most interesting investigation you have ever been a part of? Interesting.
Probably Vicky's.
Yeah.
Our investigations at Vicky's.
I feel like I learned a lot there.
Yes.
Just because we went there so much, and every time we went, we would kind of try something a little different. Like we'd play music that was from the era of whatever,
I had my laptop playing
20s.
Old pictures from Stoughton.
Yeah.
Yeah, we tried.
Or we
a lot
tried
of
using
things.
trigger items, things like that. We learned a lot there. And that's the next question: is what have you learned from investigating?
Yeah, there's something out there. I mean, I've gotten enough evidence and enough things have happened to me that there is something.
There's something.
It's not just wishful thinking or mishearing things.
Right.
There is something going on.
And it's not just that we want it to be, as Jeff would argue, the skeptic.
Oh, Jeff.
I know. It's I'm skeptical. I mean, I'm 100% skeptical. Even of some of my own stuff I'm skeptical of, and I think in order to truly come to the conclusion that something is real, you have to question everything else. Otherwise, you're kind of fooling yourself.
Yes. I think I
don't want to fool
skeptical
myself.
than you are.
Maybe.
But I think a lot of stuff could be easily explained.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
But then like that EVP I got at Vicky's where I was the only one in the building and my recorder was in the basement. You can hear the voice saying, I think it's saying Michael.
Yeah, I think
it's
so
saying
too.
the name Michael.
Clear.
Other people hear other things, but
No,
there's
I
a
hear
voice
Michael.
there. And I'm the only one in the building. I'm laying in my sleeping bag up on the main floor reading a wrestling magazine, so it wasn't me.
And was the recorder in the basement?
Yes, the recorder was down in the furniture room.
Ugh. Whenever I literally get the chills when you hear a name of someone, yourself, or someone that has been there recently. It's whatever is there is there. It's listening. It's paying attention.
Yeah, because I will discuss this more when we play the EVPs, but the week, I believe it was the week before I got that, there was another group there that had a psychic walking around named Michael that was asking questions.
Yeah.
So this voice could have been maybe like, are you Michael?
Right. Like, where'd Michael go?
Yeah.
That guy could hear me. Can you get him? I have some things I need to say. What is the most effective tool to use? I think
common sense.
Yeah,
I mean,
common sense.
Your own.
But I think if you're talking about an actual piece of equipment, it's the recorder.
I agree.
But yeah, common sense, because any tool isn't going to work very well if you don't use common sense. What is the best time of day to investigate? We kind of covered that question. I don't think there is the best time. I also think we investigate at night because we all have jobs.
Yeah, good point.
We literally have day jobs, so we have to do it when we can. Do you feel that all places have the potential to be active, or do places need to have a troubled history in order to capture any activity?
No, I think any place has the potential to be active. I think if a place has a troubled history, it's more likely to be active, but I think any place can be active.
You hear about new properties that have no history.
Yeah.
I think somebody may be inadvertently called to something.
My brother pointed out that we talked about it on Paranormal Palaver, the stuff that happened in my house when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. The green guy and all that.
Yeah, I remember asking you about the history of your house. Yeah,
and that my brother looked all that stuff up, and we were the first people to live in that house, so nobody else had lived there before us. So why did so much stuff happen to me in that house?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good point, though, because you had some really crazy stuff happen to you. That's for another episode, guys. What is the best way to investigate by yourself or with others? I think you should do both. Well, I think you should do both, though.
Yeah, but
whenever we do an investigation, I feel like we all try to take turns going somewhere by ourselves and just sitting alone in a room.
But I mean, don't do a full investigation by yourself, because if something happens to you,
that's not safe.
No, that's not safe.
You should always have someone nearby who knows where you are. I mean, you definitely ghosts aside, there are people too that are you need to be careful of. So
exactly,
safety first, kids.
But if you're in a dark room with somebody else and you both see something, then you have somebody corroborating what you're seeing. So in that way, it's good to be with somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's pretty much both.
True. I mean, yeah. I think that when you go into a room by yourself and sit, though, you really become very aware of what's around you and what's happening around you. And
I'm a hypocrite for saying that you shouldn't be alone on investigation, because
I've
done it by myself at Vicky's, but at that point I felt so comfortable with the place. I knew the place. I had my cell phone. If something happened, I would have been fine.
Vicky was just like 5-10 minutes away or whatever. Third to the last question. Would you encourage everyone to investigate, or should people use caution when thinking about investigating? I would use caution personally. I don't think it's for everybody. I think somebody who is maybe compromised emotionally, it's probably not a good idea.
No.
Because something could attach itself to you. And I also think that some people are just not mature enough. I think it really takes... Why are you looking at me when you say that? I'm pointing. And I think it does take a certain level of common sense and skepticism and open-mindedness all at the same time. And I don't know, you have to be able to take it seriously, but also, I don't know. It's not for everybody. I really don't think it is. Otherwise, everybody would be doing it.
I agree.
Second to last question. When will you do your next investigation?
I don't know.
That is a rich question, Joe. A rich question. We kind of have a contact of somebody who owns a property like 5 minutes from here at the PPP Ranch.
Triple P
Ranch. We should call it the old school ranch, actually. That has a house that's not rented, that apparently they have a really hard time renting because it has crazy activity. It's abandoned.
It's the site of a murder-suicide?
Yes, double murder-suicide.
Double murder-suicide. Wow.
That has been substantiated. We've looked up the news articles. It happened. And we're having a hard time kind of... This person is gone all week.
Krista will be investigating that by herself. She'll be coming to you live.
I'll be bringing my Ouija board, my dowsing rods, and putting a big X on my back, apparently. So we're hoping that'll be our next investigation, unless, we could talk Vicky into letting us
come back
one last time.
Please.
And this last question is from me, because it's a question I've asked myself. Being 7 years removed from having done an investigation, what would you do differently now? What would you like to try that you've never tried?
One thing that I need to do is to be more skeptical. I think that looking back on my stuff, I think I wasn't skeptical enough. Mm-hmm. I told this story on Paranormal Palaver where we were at JFK Prep and I was listening to my audio and I heard an EVP. I listened to it over and over again and I was convinced I knew what it was saying. Mm-hmm. And then I listened to more of the detail around it and after it, and I realized that what I thought was an EVP saying something was the sound of me outside peeing against a tree. So it's like I was already convinced that I knew what it was saying, that it was a voice, but it was me peeing outside.
Yeah. It's amazing what your mind will do with
and I need to rein that
information,
in.
you know?
I think I need to rein that in. I think if I go on more investigations, I need to be more...
Take a step back a little bit.
Just take a step back.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm kind of too easy to convince that something is going on.
Mm-hmm. I think what I would like to do differently is try different techniques. Like, what were their names? Another murder-suicide.
The
Constantinos. They were well known as like these EVP gurus, but a technique that they did that I've never really done was that they would record for just a couple of minutes, ask questions, and then they would stop immediately and listen back to the audio. And then if they would get a response, they could draw from that response with what questions they were going to ask next, things like that. Or if they didn't get any response, they would move to a different area so that kind of the results you were getting in real time were sort of dictating where you were going to go with the investigation. I think it's an interesting idea, and I've never tried it. I just like to. I have tried wearing headphones while you're recording so that you're actually hearing, but oh man, that is disorienting.
Yeah, it is. And it
is a weird thing to do. It's really hard to participate when you're listening.
Yeah, because I prefer being in the moment, concentrating on stuff, asking questions, and then listening to my audio the day after.
Right.
That's what I prefer.
I do wonder if I will be more nervous or anxious now or less so, in the moment. I feel like as I get older, I'm much more aware of my mortality, I guess, or how vulnerable we are just to so many different things. And I wonder if I would go into an investigation a little bit more apprehensive than, if I had been doing it this whole time.
I kind of feel like I would go in less apprehensive.
Less apprehensive?
Yeah, because I think I'm just kind of used to it by now.
Yeah. I'd sure like to find out.
Yeah, we need an investigation.
That's the end of our questions, and I have a funny little side note that Kurt and I had this pastime that we haven't been able to partake in a while, but there's this show called Paranormal Witness.
Yes. Our Paranormal Witness dates.
That's like jumped from different networks to different networks, and there was another one that we watched maybe, and I don't remember. If it was a different show we started with, and then that went off the air, so let's watch Paranormal Witness. It's just like that show.
Yeah.
But it's basically like dramatizations and interviews with people who've had like crazy paranormal experiences with places they've lived or worked or whatever. And we would DVR these shows
and then we watch them together.
We'd text each other, okay, press play now. And we'd sit in our respective homes and watch these shows together.
Text each other.
And mostly what we would do is just totally make fun of like the actors and
the difference between the people portraying the characters and the actual people in real life.
Yeah, let's just say they took some liberties and made these. You have these people who kind of look like trolls in real life, and they're like supermodels in the dramatizations. Wow. But some stuff would be really creepy, and some stuff was just flat out ridiculous and funny.
You would know I'd always have a crush on whoever was playing the girl in the
I wait for Kurt's text. She's kind of cute. She's kind of cute. Of course she is, Kurt.
I'm so predictable.
Yeah, but I missed that pastime. We haven't been able to do that in a while because I haven't seen any new episodes.
No.
But this is how dedicated we are to the paranormal.
Exactly.
We watch shows together over texting.
I got so burned out on paranormal shows where when all of a sudden they were just everywhere.
I also had to take a bit of a step back. I don't think I'm so much more into true crime right now.
I think I got really disenchanted with it when there was a television show that had a piece on JFK Prep.
Oh, well, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, and
weren't you interviewed for it?
Yeah, I went out there to get interviewed by the show, and
you and Barry.
Barry was there, and a couple other people from other groups were there, and it was just like I was the one that researched everything about the place, about Father Oswald, who founded it, and all this stuff. And all throughout the interview, they kept trying to lead me to say that Father Oswald was satanic, that it was like a satanic cult place, and I was just like, no, it wasn't. Nothing I came across in my
You weren't
my
giving
research.
them what
No,
they wanted.
I wasn't giving them what they wanted, and I could tell that they were getting kind of pissed. So of course they didn't use anything I said. But then Barry, they asked her what some of the urban legends were about the place, and when you watch the show, they edited it so Barry sounds like she's saying these things actually happened.
Oh boy.
You know, and I just like, I mean, I should have known that the entertainment industry was
they're gonna do what sells.
Yeah.
What makes
So I
people
think
tune
that kind
in.
of disenchanted me on the whole
Sure.
paranormal show stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I feel like you said it, maybe it's run its course a little bit, but don't let that fool you. There are still plenty of very active, serious groups out there doing, you know, quality investigations, and hopefully HPI will maybe get the band back together, and
There's
we'll.
so much drama with ghost hunting groups.
Yeah.
That's the number one
Not with
thing
our group, though.
No,
man.
but that was the number one thing that surprised me going into this was how catty,
Oh yeah,
how catty some of these.
Yes,
It's just like, wow, you know.
that's where egos get involved, and we've never had any egos.
No,
on our
I don't
team.
want to be on TV.
We're just friends.
I don't even know if I want to be on a podcast.
Do we need to talk offline, Kurt?
You know, like my brother asked me what would happen if we got to be like My Favorite Murder, where we had live shows at the Pabst Theater.
It's terrifying.
I mean, I'd cry.
We'd have to hire body doubles or something.
You know, we'd fill the house, of course. There'd be tons of people there.
Absolutely. They'd be lined up around the block.
I'd
But
have women throwing their panties on stage at me like I'm Tom Jones.
that's your comparison, Tom Jones. Will you wear a mesh shirt? Do
I
you
will wear a
remember
mesh shirt.
Sweet.
It's not unusual.
To be loved by anyone. Oh, good times.
I think we're winding down with this one.
We are. We are. You can tell we're out of material. Hopefully you're still with us, listeners. We didn't lose anybody along the way.
Yeah, this one was more of a just us discussing this, where future ones will be more focusing on one topic.
Yeah.
You know,
This is also a get to know your hosts.
Yeah, because last time I feel like we kind of just threw in that, we met ghost hunting and that was it. So we didn't really talk a whole lot about our ghost hunting experiences, so we wanted to do that. You know, and ghost hunting has brought so much to all of us. It brought us together for starters. We never would have met.
We have lifelong friends.
Yes.
Because of it.
One of my very best friends, Sophie, she listens to the podcast. Thank you, Sophie. I met her on the TAPS message board way back in the day, and we became, BFFs through that. And I've just met so many people through this, and it's just been amazing.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get to do it again sometime soon.
Yeah, I hope so. Especially when summer rolls around, because we did so many investigations in the summer, I feel like it definitely gives me like that itch to.
For me, it's fall. I love ghost hunting in fall.
Well, of course. Yeah, because,
everything around Halloween is ghost stuff.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So, Vicky, if you're listening.
Yes, please let us come back, please.
But we would love to come and do an interview.
That's one thing we want to do.
It would probably be something that we would do with my co-hosts from Paranormal Palaver 2 and do kind of a collaborative thing that we could release on both podcasts. But it would be worth the trip.
We have a list of topics that we want to cover in future episodes. I think we talked about this last time that we want to do stuff like, we want to mix it up. I feel like we cover a lot of the same things that the Thinking Sideways podcast does, but I also realize that a lot of people that listen to us probably don't listen to the Thinking Sideways podcast.
Probably.
Because looking at our list, we have stuff like Elisa Lam. I know we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Talk about that. You wanted to talk about the drownings that.
Oh yeah.
They covered
Mississippi.
They covered
in the Midwest in general, but
that they thought there was a serial killer doing this. We want to talk about Black-Eyed Kids.
Of course.
Black-Eyed Kids is a good one. I want to talk about the Mandela effect because I love the Mandela effect.
Yeah.
But I think
anything strange.
Yeah, it doesn't just have to be paranormal.
Yeah, if you saw a weird story that, seems like it would fit, the format of our show, let us know.
We want to do whatever you guys want us to talk about. So if there's something you want to talk about, my friend Sarah that listens to this podcast, I think I've told you this, she's fascinated by Maura Murray.
Oh, yes. I'm a big fan, too.
Yeah, and I know you are, so I figure we'll do a podcast about the disappearance of Maura Murray.
Yeah, that'd be great. And there is a podcast out there called Missing Maura Murray. That's how I know about the story, and that's probably how she came upon it, too.
Yeah, I think she said it really trailed off towards the end when they kind of ran out of things.
They've run out of evidence, and, they've kind of expanded into other cases that are a lot like Maura's. But, yeah, that's a really interesting one.
And we wanted to talk about the missing 411 stuff
Yes.
with the people that are
Go
apparently
missing in state
disappearing in
forests
state
and
forests.
things like that.
and
Yeah. All the stuff that get us excited about. I mean, that's what we want to talk about.
We hope it gets you excited too.
Yeah. In a,
Platonic way.
special. I mean, in a platonic kind of way. It's not that kind of podcast.
No, that's the late night one.
Or is it? Okay. Well, on that note.
On that note, we will see you again soon. If you have any questions, please contact us. Let us know what you would like us to do. Any questions you would like us to answer. Anything.
We're on Facebook.
Just
Correct.
contact us to say hi.
Yeah.
We're on Facebook. Twitter, we're Strange Session because somebody already had sessions with an S. So we are Strange Session. I hired some people to pay her a visit and talk to her.
You're on that. You're
persuade her.
Bust some kneecaps.
Bust some kneecaps.
And our Gmail is?
thestrangesessions@gmail.com.
Awesome.
And I need to get better with updating the Facebook and getting a blog going and all that.
Yeah.
But
it's tough when you got a day job. I will say
tough.
that from experience.
But anything you guys want us to talk about, let us know and we will talk about it.
Yeah. We're excited to hear from you.
Yes.
So thanks for joining us, episode 2 of The Strange Sessions. And until next time,
stay strange.